Hello and welcome to the Cosmic Shift of Mankind. I know it's been a while since I've had any videos out. I've been very busy with my book, which is of course called The Cosmic Shift of Mankind, and it's going to have a lot of information. It'll be my biggest book yet. I expect it will be finished probably by the end of the year to the middle of January. This will be the great culmination of my work, my research, dating back to 2015 when I first released Understanding Life After Death, and also began building the Afterlife Topics community. And now, if you're new here or if you've been around a while, that whole Afterlife Topics channel is kaput. My Google account was in fact hacked, all the passwords changed, and Google does not really let you get back into your account unless you have cross two-step authentication. So until someday when I get that rectified, this is the channel to go to. But it's valuable because this channel is basically a channel dedicated to, the audience might be much smaller than it used to be, but in the same respect it's still quite large. There's a lot of people out there who are thirsty for knowledge about, let's call it the shift, communications with the beyond, and putting all the pieces together finally in a cohesive way, which is what we're doing here. So today's episode, we're going to be talking about a few different subjects, but in particular, I have a presentation that I'll be doing later. It's called Life, the Afterlife, Expectations versus Realities, which is going to be covering a lot of this really important information about precisely where do we go when we die, what are these higher realities like, and the information I've been able to glean not only myself, but with teams of people who practice clairaudient telepathy to narrow in on the truth and figure out what is our cosmic destiny. Now, I also have a few more subjects to go over today, stuff from the community. I'll be talking about, as usual, issues related to the false light teachings, the false light narratives that are all over the internet, the things that my team says that we need to kind of slowly resist as we kind of come back into a position of logic and grace. So, with that said, I'm going to go ahead and run the intro, and we'll go ahead and begin after the intro, and there'll be a lot to cover. If you enjoy this channel, please hit the subscribe button, by the way. It's a new channel, rebooted, it will really help. And this will be a nice podcast. You can listen to this while you're driving, while you're cooking, while you're at work, while you're pretending to work, whatever the case might be. And I'm going to go ahead and roll that intro. All right, welcome back. So I'm going to go ahead and get my screen up here. Hello, everybody. And we're going to take a look at where do we begin. So, as I was saying, there's a few things to go over tonight. It's a big presentation, which is going to be called, just to bring it up real quick, Life, the Afterlife, Expectations versus Realities. A little bit about not only my background as an afterlife researcher and so many of the conclusions that I've made going into this area. All right, so firstly I want to say that what I've been doing since last month when I put up the last video is I've had some extraordinary channelings, and one is with Daniela. So Daniela is a queen from the Galactic Federation of Light, and now you've heard about this group before, they're all over the internet. But Daniela wanted most especially to clear up misconceptions about who this group is, what they're about, as well as the Ashtar High Command, which have been in communication since the 1970s, in particular with the communications of Vrillon, which I often reference as one of the major paranormal contact UFO ET events in history. since I became a clairaudient telepath, I've been able to narrow in on, let's say, the major communicators of planet Earth, which they're not that difficult to reach. Like, people approach this area and they think that it's they approach this area and they think that it's something so divine, so occult or so arcane that it cannot be approached, and completely not true. These communicators are very, very approachable, and through mental syncing, people, including those watching, can develop connections with them, especially as we go into the future. Okay, so here we go. So this whole channeling session, it's in 3 parts, and you can find them on the Afterlife Topics Reddit page. And I'll go into some of that in more detail later in this video, but most likely I'm going to be breaking some of this down in subsequent videos as I go over many of Daniela's points. I was told this is a channeled image of her through a kind of computer AI algorithm. How do you say, like an algorithm-based, like digital image creator software thing, and they kind of like created an image of her, and then my team led me to that image and I found it. Okay, we're going to talk about a few more notes, things in the community I want to bring up. So first of all, I just want to take a moment before we begin to rehash some of the main issues with the New Age movement. So lately, after communicating with Daniela and recognizing that Daniela has been in contact with other channels on the internet, but her message has been coming across poorly, it's had me, for better or worse, going deeper into the channeling communities online. Now, those channeling communities online, there's a whole bunch of different groups that are commonly spoken to. We've got the Arcturians, the Ashtar, the Pleiadians, the Archangelic Order, the same groups I communicate to, and there's very well-known channelers who communicate to all of these areas. But one thing that you will not find in almost any of these channelings is detailed, specific information about their lives. And what I came to find is that the New Age movement has been hijacked by these false premises, where even if these people are communicating to those channels, they're only getting out interpretations of what they're trying to say, because there's usually other forces coming in and altering those communications in order to keep promoting what we could call the New Age faith. Now, the New Age is funny because I'm not in opposition to the New Age. The New Age was I first heard about the New Age in teachings from spiritualism. I was predominantly interested in spiritualism. If you go back to my old books, it's like Arthur Findlay and Maurice Barbanel and Leslie Flint and all these guys. And I heard about the New Age. I think it was probably through, I want to say Seth, but it might have been also Silver Birch. And that, we're moving into a new age. I didn't know what that actually means. It's a great karmic rectification of so many evil forces, where the cosmos is rebalancing itself back into what we could call divinity, or the actual light. The false light teachings were concocted by forces on our planet and beyond this planet as a way to create a fictitious spiritual movement that spreads out across the entire heavenly cosmos, the entire grand cosmic multiverse. And this, excuse me, and let's just say that these teachings are put in place for a purpose. The purpose is to elicit doubt, and while also trumpeting people up as being, if that's a word, like propping people up as being divine saviors, spiritual gurus, messiahs, on a scale of ascension of consciousness, while denying the existence of good and evil, because this creates a philosophical dichotomy where you can get away with evil and do whatever you want, because we manifest our reality. And you'll notice that when you post information about actual cosmic events that are well documented by proper channels, I'm talking about things like the Orion Wars, the Draco Reptilians. You can actually find stuff about this on Gaia TV. A lot of these channels it's almost like a predictive programming. They'll just immediately go into a protocol where they'll say something to the effect of, I'm so sick of hearing about all this conflict. Let's transcend the conflict and forget about these polarities. There is no such thing as good and evil. Let's just manifest our own realities. This philosophy, I am told, through telepathic direct clairaudient syncing, is so disastrous it can destroy a civilization. So these are 3 tenets of the New Age movement that I can think of. When you go on, in particular, like, I don't know, particular channeling groups on the internet that literally espouse these same premises again and again and again and again, sometimes in a thinly veiled message. Sometimes they claim to be speaking to angels, and yet these are angels who have apparently forgotten the premise of literal angelic power, which is to protect the innocent. And it goes into lots and lots of questionable teachings that sound fine on the surface. Energy follows intention. Sure, it's true, but notice how so much of this information, it's not specific. Angels are saying to you today, fighting with yourself is exhausting. There's no productivity in that. I don't know, because my communicators would beg to differ. It's if there's an element of yourself that is holding you back or has a proclivity to being cruel or mean to people, sometimes you do have to fight that out of yourself. That's the thing. So we can't be in this weird spectrum of there's no gray zone. If it's fighting, it's wrong. It's conflict. We should all ascend to positivity and light consciousness while practicing spiritual bypassing, which is a psychological medical condition that causes people to, I don't know, I mean, it's like that, what was that old Seinfeld episode, Serenity Now, and you got the, everybody like builds up all their anger inside and they release it at some imprecise moment. This is not how the psyche operates. Okay, so stop beating up on yourself, realize how magical you are, and love yourself as much as we do. Well, that's nice. It's beautiful. This is nice stuff that helps you on your way. It's just that it's also trite, because I communicate to the angelic order, the archangelic order, as many others have. I've communicated directly to Michael and Gabriel, and I never used to believe that these beings existed. I'm a paranormal researcher, dude. I've traveled and trying to understand about near-death experiences. I was not under the impression years ago that there was such a thing as actual physical other realities in a huge multiverse that we can all connect to, that it relates to a kind of divine higher cosmos that is our true afterlife. I kind of thought everything was just this like spirit reality existence, right? So what happens when I begin communicating to the archangelic order? They don't deal in trite messages, because they do when people need, because they're spirit guides. So when someone needs to hear a message saying, stop beating up on yourself and realize how magical you are, they know when to say that, and it'll save somebody from the throes of death. And they'll communicate to people's subconscious minds if they cannot hear them in a telepathic syncing capacity. So, one more thing, I'm in a new place right now, by the way, so I'm a little bit more privacy, I'm a little bit happier here, so I think my videos are going to come out a little bit better. Okay, but the angelic order says in no uncertain terms that there's supreme evil on planet Earth, and the purpose of angels is to protect the innocent. Not all this stuff about hiding from conflict. Hiding from conflict is what evil forces want. Okay, you're becoming a galactic human. Sure, this is called the ascension. So I'm just looking at some of these for the first time, because this is a channeling group that's ran by, I believe, Daniel Scranton. Daniel Scranton speaks to the Arcturian High Council. So do I, because I began talking to them as well. all I can say is, there's a lot of legit information that corresponds to anything I hear, but then I can see people's messages and see where it's being manipulated and altered here, 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 here. And who is altering it? Soul collectives. Groups of people from our world who die and enter non-physical spirit realities, which is not the place to go when you die, and manifesting a lot of power to get into people's thoughts, block the messages, and maintain this particular philosophy, which is a philosophy of the denial of reality and the denial of evil, and reframing everything as negativity. The Holocaust, it's just negativity. Thinking about the Holocaust is just being negative. Let's learn to be positive and enjoy the moment. Oh, okay, what about all these atrocities in Ukraine, but when Russians came in and were slaughtering people outside Kiev? That's just negativity. I'm tired of all these posts about the polarities. Let's understand that we're all just God playing different roles. And when I challenge these people on these beliefs, they flip around, they switch, and they become sometimes demonic. These very people on Facebook will switch around on you and they will attack you mercilessly. So much for being positive. If you dare challenge them, this video will be attacked. It's absolutely guaranteed. I'm almost always in some position where someone's out to mess up my reputation or say I'm this, say I'm that, because people are very deeply committed to these ideas. Okay. Let's see. There's so much. There's so many things that I can kind of pick apart in the New Age channeling community. Sometimes the issue becomes the things that are not spoken about. Sometimes it's about certain concepts being presented, but not being presented with the proper context. Like if we're talking about manifesting power, for what purpose? Are we manifesting power for ourselves, or to protect the innocent and to be part of a community and to in essence help society? Because there's a real lack of benevolence in so many of these teachings, and people just go with it and they're happy with it. We have to manifest our power, but for what purpose? Again, I end up not seeing it. It disturbs me. So what are these tenets? We can be as selfish as we want. Why? Because we are manifesting our own reality, which means we are actually manifesting our friends and loved ones out of our minds. Because we're all a bunch of solipsists now. And if you have a wife, you made her. What about your wife's sovereignty? It doesn't matter, because life is subjective and you're the only one who exists. Okay? New Age movement. Evil is just God playing a fun role. They'll say this again and again and again. Heinrich Himmler, Pol Pot, Stalin, and Mao. The horrors of the 20th century. That my legitimate team, because I actually do communicate with the higher cosmos, and a lot of these guys communicate in pieces, but they're seduced by this so much, they allow the soul collectives, the hollow heavens, to put these ideas in their minds to sabotage the real message. They say again and again, evil is just the polarities. There has to be evil, there has to be good. So someone has to take the role of Pol Pot, while someone else takes the role of who knows what. So it's that same issue. So you'll see variations of this message appear again and again and again and again all across the internet, okay? And it's evil is just a role. I am told it's one of the most blasphemous concepts imaginable. Anyone who has a student of history, learn about just the horrors of World War I, for example, and try to apply the horrors of World War I to a philosophy that we're all just playing roles, and let's all ascend to light consciousness. Just because you add platitudes to something doesn't mean it's wisdom now. It's like, because if you just practice a little bit of critical thinking, it's back to this: evil is God playing a fun role. New Age movement. Let's all become one entity. This is the same thing. Let's go into the light and let's migrate away from ourselves, become one being, which again goes back to solipsism, because we are already one being, so we actually manifest the individual sovereign existences and spirits of other people with our own minds, which means we can do whatever we want to anybody else and get away with it, including corporate criminal activities or the actions of the cabal. Because this is also what the cabal has historically believed as a way to justify their atrocities on planet Earth. But to even talk like this, these people will then suddenly switch a line to the mainstream, call me a conspiracy theorist, and then 1 week later they'll be saying that the Earth is flat. So it's like their entire existence, sometimes some of these people, is mental backflips to keep up with these ideas. Okay, so on that note, what else I want to talk about? So on this channel, and this is gonna be gross, but guess what, guys? Don't you love it when someone says that? I was gonna take some milk out of the carton, but no, I'm gonna pour it in my cup because my mouth is very dry. So I'm not gonna drink milk out of the carton, but I am gonna drink some milk because I just get dry mouth this time of year when it's winter. My lips get chapped and my mouth gets dry, and we're doing this long form, which means I'm not going to be editing this video. It's a podcast, basically. Okay. Whew. So, before I begin on the presentation, I do want to bring to light, so on this community, what I do, I've been running communities since I was 11 years old. On America Online, I used to have role-playing communities, and this was like 1998, and by like 2002, I had big communities, sometimes different subjects. I'm just trying to think back, like funny forums I used to run. One thing I've learned in about 23 years of running communities is that when people are attacking you because of ideological reasons, because of this stuff, because they want to believe this stuff to be real, and they make up excuses, make up ways to come after you, you don't want to just sit on it. You want to call it out. So basically, on this channel, when people are making blatant attacks against me, trying to spread rumors, and seeing all this as an arena, and being intimidated by what I have to say and coming after me, then I'm going to call it out, especially if it's happening on Facebook and it's manifesting out of, let's say, the material that I'm posting. You have people who are on absolute vendettas, because it happens. And there is some extraordinarily bad bullying. I wanted to real quick bring up, this is really sad. When I was way younger, I'm talking like 12 years old, like a lot of people at that age, in 1999 or so, 2000, I used to go on the Something Awful forums, okay? Now this is very interesting. We're going to go back to that prior point in a minute. But on the Something Awful forums, it was a comedy site back then. It still exists, if you want to call its current iteration in existence, because it's really bad. But it was very funny back then. I remember the comedies, like the pranks they used to do on AOL Instant Messenger. Those were my favorite ones, because they'd always be pranking people about like pretending that there was a robot at the computer. It's like, greetings, and they're like, hello robot, can you, like, this is the funniest shit. And so anyway, the guy who ran the site, his name is Richard Lotax Kayanka. Back in the day, I used to exchange emails with this guy because I was sending him the awful links of the day. I remember sending links about like blessed like holy socks. You can buy in mail like socks that are like blessed socks, holy socks. So they get blessed by a priest. You can wear the holy socks on your feet, like stuff like that. And so, kind of knew the guy on his forum as well. And I'm a telepath channeler now, which is funny because on a community like this one, no one believes in these things, even though it's as real as the rain in the sky. It's as real as a flat tire. It's real. And being able to perform clairaudient telepathy or mental syncing, it's like phone calls basically, and you can put your thoughts out into the higher cosmos, communicate to all kinds of groups, and learn things that are phenomenal. Schematics to make flipping spaceships. I have that on file. Medical beds, technologies. It's just people's hang-ups. The collective psyche that doesn't want these things to exist. Anyway, so I'm communicating to Archangel Diadora. And now this is one of the main communicators on this on this community, who communicates, I would say, to about a dozen people on Afterlife Topics and Metaphysics on Facebook. And Diadora came to me like a couple months ago. It was like, Cyrus, I know you have difficulty running Afterlife Topics. There's someone else I know who lives in Sacramento, and this guy actually runs the Something Awful forums, and he's practicing telepathy. Now, this is not a weird thing for me because I practice telepathy with people living here who are not dead all the time. I practice telepathy with the girl who works at Starbucks as the barista. I have people in my community ordering, using mental syncing talent, ordering cocktails at restaurants because the bartender is practicing. Why? Because the Arcturians activated our brains, and we have implants in all our brains allowing augmented telepathy. Excuse me. And this has been going on for a couple of years, enhancing everyone's mediumship skills and telepathic syncing skills. So to me, it's not very surprising, right? So I end up chatting with the guy who ran Something Awful, like this comedian, I would say comedian legend. He's going on and on and on about how his community bullied him out. That he was completely bullied out of somethingawful.com because it's like the whole community was just taken over by like people with agendas to just destroy him, destroy anything that doesn't fit a political agenda, and they basically exiled him out. And I was like, wow, this is unbelievable. I'm like, I'm gonna have to go on the internet and confirm this. It's like, am I really communicating to Rich Lotax? Or am I, is this like his subconscious mind? Like, what's going on here? So finally, I get a message because I'm referencing this a little bit on my group, and my buddy Travis sends me a link. It's like, Cyrus, hey, did you know that, that guy who ran Something Awful, Lotax, he's dead. That Lotax killed himself in November 2021. And I'm just like, I'm absolutely floored. Because here's this dude, he took his life because he was bullied so hard by his community. Because I got the whole insight about what was happening, and I learned about it through mental syncing. My friend Diadora says, you could have never known that the guy that you were talking to the whole time was the spirit of Lotax. Because he didn't know he was dead. It was like real Sixth Sense stuff. It's like he thinks he's still living in like Los Angeles or Sacramento or wherever it was. And he didn't know that he was actually that he had actually died because he shot himself. And so he was just living in this kind of this astral spirit world state. And it's a job of the higher density cosmos to rescue people out of those places, because people don't always get rescued. They disperse. They reincarnate as a fish or something. They don't want anything to do with their old life again. And what my team does is they try to get people out of those situations to manifest them into higher realities. But you can't go in there and be like, you're dead. Okay, they live in these astral states, or just mental manifestations, which are not places we want to go to when we die, incidentally. Excuse me. Okay, so suddenly ends up happening is my entire communications with this guy become confirmed. And like I was speaking to the freaking ghost of Richard Blowtax Kayanka the whole time, like one of my favorite internet comedians. And how did he die? Absolutely insane. What they basically exiled him out of his own community, and he had nothing left to live for. He killed himself. Why? Nonsense, cancel culture. They went after him because they said he was transphobic. Like, these aren't areas that cross paths so much with Afterlife Topics and the Cosmic Shift, which is where we are now. If it did, I would have these same people coming after me, picking apart everything I write about and looking for some way to get after me. And this is what happens all over the place in communities. This is what happens to people who are bullied. They can end up like this because people are so devious. They construct words, they construct sentences, they construct paragraphs designed to get at people in the most insidious way possible on the internet. And this dude, I would never imagine this guy taking his life because of something like this, but it happened. Because that's how insidious the internet currently is, and it's why my team from upstairs say that this time we live in is it's one of the most evil times of all. But remember, evil is just God playing a fun role. Okay, so this was news as of yesterday. It just flipped me out. So as a result of this, the way I handle it is I do not, and this is my latest communicator, Daniela, of the Ashtar, the Manzurans, the same group, incidentally, that abducted Travis Walton. When people come after me with an agenda to try to like psychologically destroy me or destroy the community, I call it out. Because by calling this stuff out, you're doing what you don't want them to do, which is bringing it to light instead of what you want them to. What they want you to do is to be hurt by it, to be affected by it, to be put off kilter by it, right? So here's this woman, Christine Navarro, who used to be in the community and then she left. Like, I know people who ran communities and have had like death threats on a weekly basis. Like, people don't like being kicked out of communities or feeling like they leave, but they're feeling like they're being exiled away. But people join communities all the time, including this one, with terrible, hateful attitudes or chips on their shoulders or extreme closed-minded prejudices, and they don't like it, and then they want to come after you. And this can happen on a YouTube channel about, I don't know, knitting. You can have people coming after you about knitting. So Christine posts this on this channeling Seth, Bashar, Arcturians, Pleiadians, Archangels group. Incidentally, haven't seen many accurate channelings of any of those guys. It's like half and half. It's like, well, this is real, and then suddenly it goes back to this stuff. Okay, so I just want to address this because you bring this stuff up to the surface, right? Because when cancel culture and these crazy groups want to destroy a community, especially when it's an early one without many subscribers, you have to nip it in the bud. So she says, I was part of your Facebook group for months and subscribed to your old YouTube channel, the one you could no longer access due to your claim of it being hijacked by them while you were gone. So instantly this woman goes into this, you see, it's all these different psychological gambits, right? It's like my claim that it was hijacked by them. So now I'm a conspiracy theorist. Now they are out to get me. No, my Google account was hacked. The passwords were changed. It's as simple as that. Google doesn't allow you to access your old accounts if it's two-step authentication and you're missing one of the two. It's done. It's finished. You cannot access it. I might be able to by petitioning Google, but I've been a little bit busy with this new community, this new branch. So Afterlife Topics on YouTube, I've had to moonlight. So immediately she's trying to sow doubt. And now keep in mind, this is an attack. She's not responding to me saying anything about her. This is her seeing me post something on a Facebook group and then coming after me as a way to sow doubt about what I'm doing, because she belongs to a spirit team that believes in this stuff. We can be as selfish as we want. We can manifest our realities. We can be corporate career criminals and have no consequences, and we're all going to become one entity again. So what does it even matter? So these are soul collective spirit groups that influence and shape people by communicating to people's subconscious minds. And ultimately, I would call these archonic forces that want to control society. Right? That's the best way to put it. And they want this information out there. They want these ideas out there so that people are pacified and numb, and they do not think for themselves. They do not defend the innocent, and the cabal types of entities on planet Earth can run amok. And who are their useful idiots who do not even realize what it is that they are promoting? Exactly. And suddenly someone comes along who is a master covert psychological operative to try to go around and find information that doesn't sit with them because it's contradicting the false light teachings, and you end up with psychological operations. I still consider this like a part of cancel culture, but it's not political. It's not about races and sexual identity or anything like that, but it's about ideology, and it's about dog whistling to other people who belong to that ideology, or dog whistling perhaps to the mainstream materialist types of people, the atheists, the skeptics, and the rationalist types of minds who would say yep, Cyrus is a conspiracy theorist because his account was hacked and he's reporting on it. See, it's all some kind of political maneuvers all the time. Let's get back to this most interesting message by this woman who seems to be using every single psychological manipulation button that I think anyone could possibly press. And we can keep kind of picking this apart and see how at the end it all relates back to these three premises, when she basically reveals exactly who she is, what she's all about, and what her agenda is, which is going to be in the response to my response to what you're reading. But in the meantime, I should point out that she's welcome to rejoin Afterlife Topics and Metaphysics, because sure, she can respond as much as she wants to this video or anything else. Of course, she struck first, she came after me, and I'm going to make a response to it. She's welcome to be in the community, because honestly, what she says and what she represents is so different from what we represent, which is not this stuff, these three tenets. Okay, so let's get back to it. But it's just forum drama, Cyrus. No. This is actually like the information war as it happens. And if someone puts information like this out there on the internet, I'm going to respond to it. Okay, so just as you, quote, disappeared out of the blue, what? So what is this? So who's the conspiracy theorist here? People on your Facebook page and the YouTube comments were baffled as to what happened to you, as you're active basically on a daily basis to then zero activity for months. The circumstances behind your disappearance seem bizarre and hold discrepancies between your explanations of what should still be on public record. I don't know which is accurate, as I do understand corruption exists, but this event paired with your recent behavior in your Facebook group raises red flags for me and a lot of others. See, once again, it's all this dog whistling. Continuous dog whistling. So, raising red flags. So she's basically apparently I'm not allowed to not be on my community. Because there was a bunch of shit that I went through last year. But I've already talked about this openly on my Facebook page. There's nothing, there's nothing bizarre about it. Basically, the way an attack like this is phrased, you can see that it's a psychological operation. Your recent behavior in your Facebook group raised red flags for me and a lot of others. The recent behavior, if anyone who would trace it back, would actually find what I do is I admin a group, and when really weird people come in, I kick them out, and then they come back ranting in some new account or something that I'm a forum admin tyrant. And then it's like Cyrus's behavior is so weird because he kicked me out for, let's see, what was one of the people I kicked out recently? I kicked somebody out who called me a right-winger because I was posting videos about a guy named, I posted one video about a guy named J.P. Sears, who is a comedian who makes fun of the New Age movement. And I didn't know he was a right-winger, and so I'm apparently a political channel now. Kicked this person out, caused a huge controversy. See, so it's like one of these things where it's like, if you go back and you learn about how people were treated during KGB era Russia, it's one of those things where it's like they will find something for you to be guilty about, and then they will make that the thing that you're guilty about. Last year was a fun one because I first began revealing myself as a channeler and telepath, going against this movement and posting clairaudient channeled messages from my team. And what I was posting was in contradiction to all of this. And I had very well-known, very reputable members, shall we say, like authors, people in my community, telling everyone that Cyrus was not a real channel and Cyrus needs to be on medications, because they were receiving messages that we all die, we become one, we join the light, evil isn't real, Hitler is in heaven, we can be as selfish as we want, but just replace selfishness with prosperity, and all of us can, all of us can just rejoice in manifestation of miracles, and then we die, we go back to the light. And so I come along with completely different information through my communications, and I end up with all these people in my group who are like up-and-coming authors, writers, and people with well-known established reputations. Making posts in no uncertain terms. Cyrus is hearing voices. Cyrus is not well. Cyrus needs help. Cyrus is, whatever the case might be, Cyrus is thinks he's talking to higher celestial beings, but there's no such thing as higher celestial beings. There's no such thing as a higher cosmos, because when we die, we join the light of God. We become one entity, which means there is no such thing as evil. It's just playing a role, and therefore we can be as selfish as we say. It keeps going back to these three main principles. So when this person says that I was raising red flags and my recent behavior was so upsetting, basically what they're doing is they're referencing last year when I had like this whole group called Afterlife Research Educational Institute. I spoke for free at their conferences twice as a second to keynote speaker, and of course they never paid me, by the way. And they I had that whole group basically trying to chase me out of town. Why? Because I was communicating knowledge which was politically incorrect. Okay? So she continues, I was intrigued by the things you were posting at first, but then after some time I began to understand that what some commenters who followed you for a long time were talking about, how you've changed, and in a negative sense. You're extremely condescending and constantly diss all the people who don't agree with you, and you're doing it again right here. Which is funny because actually I'm not. This was a group where I posted this information, and then someone attacked me and said I was a fake. And I said, actually, I'm not a fake, and it's kind of strange if you're agreeing to the site admin, to the person saying I'm a fake, because they're not providing any information. Like it's that kind of thing. And so we're right back to this kind of victim blaming attitude as well, which is again how these psychological operations work. They're the one attacking, you're the victim, now you're the one attacking, right? They're the one abusing you, now you are the abusive one. It's that same pattern that we see in toxic people again and again and again. You're extremely defensive and seem almost paranoid. So once again, psychological operation. How do you discredit somebody? Keywords, red flags, you're not well, you seem paranoid. It's the same thing. They're trying to, like, I don't know, it's like they're trying to one flew over the cuckoo nest you. They're trying to say that, you know, maybe you're not really a channeler. Maybe you're not really a telepath. Never mind the fact that I have a whole group of telepaths. Everyone does it and cross corroborates scientifically all the information. Doesn't matter. Maybe you're not feeling well. Maybe you need to go and check yourself in for a while and come to us and we'll help you. We'll help you get through it. And maybe we'll, you know, if thank God I don't live in England because they don't treat people very well there, and in this area of life they historically like to put people in hospitals against their will. What's really going on is it's all, you know, all of this is just here to basically incite doubt. Now this is just some stupid group on Facebook, right? Like, it's one group. Why am I bringing this up? Because it's the last thing that she would expect for me to do is to post this on my channel and actually pick it apart. Because you have to. If I've been running communities for so long, and I see communities will fall apart if you do not bring this stuff out into the surface. You have to bring it up. You write long, detailed replies every single time, disseminating how you supposedly understand their manipulation techniques, on how they're trying to influence everyone else in the group to turn them against you. Yes, exactly, like she is doing, consciously, and then bringing this to attention to take attention away from the fact that she's doing that exact thing. Because, again, we're dealing with this stuff, these tenants. We're dealing with people who have spirit guides from realities where this is what they are putting out there, which is why there's completely indiscriminate, bizarre, cancel culture style attacks against anyone, not just me, who goes out there and tries to push against this narrative. Okay? Via telling them your understanding of NLP and manipulation techniques and threatening to ban them from your group, many of which you bragged about banning after the fact, which I have, because it's not that I'm bragging, I'm letting people know. These people are coming in with weird NLP manipulation techniques, constantly trying to subvert the message, trying to spread doubt, trying to, like, masquerade their attempt to sabotage the work as a bit of healthy skepticism, when really what they're doing is they are not engaging the content, they're not engaging with the community, they're not engaging with other people, they're not being nice, they're not being any of those, they're not being polite, they're not being respectful that they're joining a different community with a different set of beliefs, and they come in trying to poke holes in all of it, and then suddenly I am the great forum tyrant for kicking these people out. Okay. And you constantly say how you want to keep those threads up to keep these people as examples, which is exactly what I'm doing right now. Because this is a crazy, crazy, crazy post that is full of manipulation. And anyone, I would say, who has ever lived in our culture would see this as manipulation. Based upon just dealing with people like this at work, dealing with people like this in your family, who will formulate stuff like this very specifically to sow seeds of doubt continuously. So this is just something that I've been dealing with a lot ever since I began calling out this stuff. Like, you have to stay in your lane. You can't start questioning the New Age movement. You can't begin saying evil is real. You can't begin to say that individual existence is a God-given thing. You cannot begin to say divinity is real, and you cannot begin to say that we need to rethink the idea of manifestation if it's not being done in a benevolent way, because people want this stuff because it justifies their criminal corporate behaviors. Maybe not her, but it's that same culture that forces beyond this world want to keep in place. And as soon as you begin questioning the evils of the New Age movement, these people come out of the freaking woodwork, or they turn on you. Looks like a lot of power tripping to be in others, previously and likely presently, with a nice little edit here with the brackets, in the group. Is it true? Because, I don't know, I'm pretty happy with Afterlife Topics and Metaphysics. There's been a lot of weirdos and people belonging to this false light religion and cult who I've kicked out, and it's just not every day that somebody comes back with a presentation like this that's, very eloquently, masterfully written. Again, it's appeal to authority. Look how well my sentences are. Look at my diction. Look at my sentence structure. Pay attention to me. I'm an authority. I recently unsubscribed from your YouTube channels and your Facebook group because you're running a little online cult where the active members are following you around like little puppy dogs. So this is where it gets funny, because now she's calling my community a cult, our community a cult, where there's lots and lots of very, very nice people who are not cultists. If you look up what a cult is, great, have fun, and compare that to what I do just for fun. That's hilarious. And calling the members of Cosmic Shift of Mankind and Afterlife Topics little puppy dogs. So now it's suddenly it's kind of like the evil just comes to the surface, and you would be able to see it in this woman's face if you were around her when she went into this paragraph, because you would see it shift, her face shift, you would see her eyes change, you would see her eyebrows change, and you would see a demonic influence come over her, because that's precisely what my team, who I completely freaking trust, told me I would have seen if I had seen her face when she began calling the community a cult and calling you a little puppy dog or a spineless worm who just believes anything he's told. Okay, plenty of yes men and women supporting your narcissistic behavior. Same thing. This is a narcissistic control complex, crazy, weird attack. So she has to say that I'm a narcissist before I call her a narcissist, because it's all about continuously trying to manipulate what other people think to stay up here, to keep the argument several levels above whomever the opponent is, because these are people who go through life seeing everything as a chess game. It's always chess, corporate chess, social chess, always debating and trying to outsmart people endlessly, constantly ambitious, trying to get to the next step. If you choose to post this, if so, hopefully unedited and uncolored. Oh yes, it is unedited and uncolored, because it's always unedited and uncolored. So again, trying to poison the well. So that's another debate technique that you see with these unhinged people, which is poisoning the well, which is inserting something that's going to make the rest of what someone stands for seem unscrupulous, even though it's a lie. So this is an assertion that I edit and color my critics, like I'm altering what they have to say. Actually, I don't. That's why I make examples, is I actually post exactly what they write. I took this entire post and I copied it, made a screenshot, and posted it on my group. I didn't edit anything. I'm just, here you go, everybody, take a look. This is what happens when you run a community that goes after this stuff. As soon as you go after this material, then you end up with these attack drones. You end up with people who will stop at nothing to prevent this message from getting out. Okay. That's fine, because some will be offended and others will have their suspicions affirmed. Suspicions about what? Cyrus is... what's the actual thesis here? Okay, Cyrus is crazy. Cyrus is paranoid. It's like, notice that there's no attempt to address the material. There's no attempt to address what I'm actually writing about, which last I checked is none of those things. I don't think she's ever read any of the channelings on the Reddit page. I don't think she actually understands what we do here. I don't think she understands the fact that it's a community now with many people who are channeling and communicating to the same groups. It's pure agenda. I was on the sidelines observing, I would say plotting, and only posted one very positive reply under a thread, and that was enough activity for me. So notice the self-absorbed attitude here. It's a completely self-absorbed attitude, because why does it matter that she only participated in the group one time and that was enough for me? What does that have to do with anything? Like, why does your opinion matter? Are you one of these ladies who goes to Target customer service because you bought the $70 linen sheets? You notice that there was a black smudge at the end of at the tip of the corner, and you go to the customer service and you like try to ruin that person's life? Because that's how these people are. Anyone who has ever worked a customer service job knows what it's like to be around someone who will become furious at you, like my old job as a waiter, when you forget to add. They want 3 limes in their water, and if you bring them 2, they go on Yelp and they give 1-star reviews and they try to get you fired. That's literally what happened to somebody at my old workplace. And these are the types of entities that live on Earth, hiding in human bodies. Okay, am I saying that's her? I don't know, maybe not. Took me some time to weigh out whether you were power tripping and how clear you and your channeling were. Now I see clearly you're taking the downturn. So basically it seems like, gosh, who's calling me? Yikes, I guess I'm gonna come back to this. Okay, I'm back. So that was a political survey calling me back to forum drama, but it's not forum drama, because what we're talking about here is quite literally the enraged New Age movement and how it mobilizes, how it tries to come after people like me and anyone who is going against really what is a kind of, I call it like a psychic mafia almost, because it's like you do not want to go against these soul collectives, these quote-unquote spirit guides who continuously reinforce these 3 principles. Okay. There's always the theme. Okay, let me see, where are we? So I'm slowly taking a downturn. You're out of control. Listen to the people who are trying to inform you before it gets really out of hand, because she's looking out for my best interests. Because remember, it's about love and light, and you possibly lose your sense of self and stability. I'm only saying these things because you have a fairly large platform of some thousands of followers. I believe you probably are channeling, but that in itself is out of control. As you've mentioned, they just pop in all the time. Hello. So what she's doing is now she's like really plotting, really trying to figure out on what levels can I sow doubt. Mediums all the time work this way. I can be talking here and I can begin a communication because I choose to begin a communication, because I want to begin a communication, because that's how I work, because I became a medium. I was trying to become a medium for years. I was trying to become a clairaudient telepath for years, and I finally was able to begin activating those powers. And this happened early last year that I really got into this. So she's going through these different techniques, and now she's at the point where it's like she's trying to help. So on one hand, she's calling my community an online cult, where the people who like this material, and that includes you, are little puppy dogs and little yes men and women, like being completely demeaning and horrible. But now she switches, because this is what narcissistic, sociopathic, control complex people do, is she'll switch into a different framework and go at this from a new perspective. Okay. There's always the theme of battle, and it clearly shows in your paranoid defenses against dissenting voices. Again, trying to poison the well and trying to block me from being able to defend myself, because what happens is I post material, people attack me, I defend against it, and now my defenses is Cyrus being paranoid. It's part of a psychological loop. It actually does relate to NLP. It relates to a little bit on the spectrum. It sounds funny, but mind control. These are mind control based loops that people do to get into people's minds, to get into people's heads and try to convince people of things that no one would be convinced of otherwise. Just like no one who actually listens to my messages, sees the work I do, sees the videos I do, sees what I'm up to, is going to come away thinking that Cyrus is any of these things. Unless they have an agenda, unless they have an axe to grind. Okay, next thing. You're either projecting your own negative thoughts through your channeling and or negative influences are coming through you. It's a gradual process and isn't completely out of hand. It's not too late. I can go to her and find salvation. Go to her soul collective and find the 3 tenets of the New Age movement. We can be as selfish as we want. Evil is just God playing a fun role. Let's all become one entity. Okay. But I'm saying these things in hopes of it not getting too dark for you and those that are following you. She's helping us. She's helping us because Cyrus just is not the same anymore. But we can go to her and her community. We can go to the New Age, the spiritualist, spiritual teachings that talk about how all is love and light. And we can go back to that and get away from all this nonsense about extraterrestrials and that there's consequences for actions and that there's war and that we have to learn to be self-responsible and that there's karma. We need to go back to the loving embrace of the light. But I'm saying these things in the hopes of it not getting too dark and that those following you don't succumb to Cyrus's darkness. Because this is definitely not the writings of a religious fundamentalist hiding behind a very rational, just, absolutely completely just mainstream, tells it like it is, smartest girl in the room. It's definitely not a religious fundamentalist hiding behind that smokescreen. Hoping that anyone reads this doesn't just take my stance, but evaluates anything said by anyone, including me, but makes a special note for the original author. Okay, then there's the call to action. I hope anyone reads this, evaluates what's being written and understands that we're all in trouble because Cyrus is out of control, trying to teach self-individual responsibility, protecting the innocent, standing up against weird New Age religion teachings, and trying to spread a message that doesn't involve moral relativism. Because none of that is of the light. Okay, so I make a response. Christine, you're completely asleep at the wheel. You can't seem to differentiate right from wrong, to understand intuitively what is going on in people, or anything like that. You're in fact representing the very thing I fight, which is extreme manipulative tendencies that are embedded deeply into society, put in place by people like yourself who on a psyche level are seeking control and power out of people. The fact is I make many enemies because I try to teach about self-responsibility, not the New Age religion of there is no evil. My entire life are sets of miracles upon miracles. It is nothing you could understand, in my opinion, or fathom. Nor can you get into my head, because this entire essay was framed in such a way to hurt me, ridicule me, demean me. And yet, anyone who reads this channeled message sees how it is sourced, understands its message would, if their heart is open, understand what is being written. You actually write this from a sense of solipsism, a belief that your opinion matters over someone else, which is actually a narcissistic control response. You believe you can write this from a position of great authority, great conviction, and alter the reality, which is that I work with dozens of telepaths, channelers, people everywhere who communicate to my same team, which they do, and can cross-corroborate information, which we do. But your existence as Christine Navarro does not change this reality. Posting a bunch of psychological operative nonsense to instill fear does not change that we are telepaths. These are our messages. To try to wreck my self-esteem, which was her purpose, which I'm sure is something you do on a habitual basis to innocent people, which is what I've found out about. It will not wreck me. To defend the mainstream system and, let's say, completely oppose the message in this communication, this is ultimately a response to my communications with Daniela, says a lot, because who would want to defend the mainstream, defend corporatism, defend the corruption and evil on this planet? Who wants to defend it? If we're getting messages from higher powers saying that we need to kind of rise up and be ready and willing to be able to keep making telepathic contact and keep integrating the collective consciousness into those types of events where we have arrivals coming in, then to oppose that message, it's like, okay, then what? You want to keep the system as is? Why? Why do you want to keep the system as is? Because I would interpret that as people wanting to keep the system as is because they have so much power on this earth. The last thing they want is to lose that power. Okay. So what I recall from Afterlife Topics is that you are an extremely controlling, demeaning woman, which is true. I am an admin of multiple communities. I must regularly make choices to ban people, get rid of toxic people like yourself, and take note of all types of entities living in human bodies that want to hurt messages of self-responsibility, divinity, and so forth. Anyone who has an actual open heart would see again what a message is about and take it on its own merit and not listen to a third party trying to make them decide how to think and feel. So I'm calling you out right now. This is how every weirdo bad guy I've ever had to deal with operates. Make accusations that actually fit their own psyche. The abuser calls the abused abusive. Call the one who levies threats the threatening. Call the victim of narcissistic abuse the narcissist. Why? It deflects. It sets a new frame where a victim cannot properly defend themselves. And this is why you hate my message and my communications, because it calls out this exact element of life which many people on earth, especially the West, rely on day to day to become more successful, more powerful, constantly at the expense of others, just manifesting their realities, or so they think. Manifestation, the secret, at the expense of other people, because we do not create our own subjective realities. So anyway, and that's why on a deep level my work is hated by you, and you would go through any level imaginable to get at me. But yet it will never ever work. I will never fall off my horse, which I will not. I will never be subjected to those types of attacks, and I will continue my work forward, period. So this is part of the response that she made to what I just wrote, and it's just so classic. I just have to talk about it. Okay. Your team seems to be telling you information that lures you in like the little whispering devil sitting next to your ear to make enemies out of people that actually could be helping you out in the long run. They could be helping me see the light, everybody. They could be helping me join with the light, to become one with the light. Instead, I'm rejecting it, and I'm communicating to evil forces. Because true evil is the recognition that evil actually exists. Because evil is just negativity. It's on a spectrum of negativity. And negativity we must transcend and understand that evil is just God playing different roles, good and evil. That's all it is. Okay. This is the best part. It's like you're morphing into Golem before our eyes. Cyrus is Smeagol now. You're twisting reality and making completely empty, fabricated statements about me to fit a narrative to comfort your own insecurities and fears. If you have enough discernment left and any amount of humility and care for a higher shared vision left, you will sit back and read the comments and check your ego and check that your team could be leading souls down a dark path by turning away from the light. And now we know what's going on. Is that this woman now breaks down and admits what she's all about, is that she serves the light, which is actually the false light. The false light teachings, the New Age movement, these three principles, which allows people to seemingly get away with anything they want until an angelic power comes along and barbecues them. Because we are in a cosmic multiverse, a very powerful, grand cosmic multiverse, where there are unimaginable presiding powers, and to maintain creation in all its wonder, there must be divine justice and divine accountability. How do we avoid divine justice and divine accountability? By creating a religious philosophy on earth that is also hijacked by, I'm sorry to say this, negative ET influence that gets into people's minds and creates a movement that literally is about no longer holding people accountable for their actions. So when Christine here says that My team is leading souls down a dark path that turns them away from the light. That's what she's talking about. I'm turning souls away from the light, the false light of the hollow heavens. And so this is what we are up against when we are pushing against this narrative, which is so freaking popular in our culture, especially in the West, that the only way to proceed forward is to recognize how they operate, how they attack, how they try to ruin people's reputations, and how they will stop at nothing to maintain this narrative. Because they don't typically get challenged. They don't typically have to deal with anyone coming along except for people on YouTube who call out the false light, who call out the soul trap, who call out the false light matrix. So much of that information is also steeped in actual paranoia, people who are taking things too far. It's because divinity always wins out in the end, and what I know is that there's a negative extraterrestrial presence on the planet that takes over the light, promotes this stuff, and their long-term goal is basically enslavement of planet Earth. But Cyrus is paranoid. No, unfortunately, this is just stuff that you learn about, that people all over the world learn about once they get involved in direct communications, and you get it all spelled out exactly what's going on. And in the spectrum of divinity, you know what's real, you know what's false. And you know intuitively, like anyone who is not a damned soul would know, that when there is information saying that morality is relative and we can get away with whatever we want, and evil forces is just negativity, and if we dwell on evil, if we dwell on the horrors of, let's say, the 20th century, or let's pick apart, I don't know, Saddam Hussein, by recognizing that, caring about it, giving it attention, we're just giving attention to negativity, and we're forgetting that evil are just roles played by God. We all become one again. No more companionship or individuality. We morph into cosmic consciousness. No more afterlife. No more divinity. No more great spirit, great essence of other people. Goes against the ancient teachings, goes against the Native American teachings, goes against anywhere that there is wisdom on our planet Earth. Because let's instead join the New Age false light teachings movement, and let's take Christine. She is our prophet. So are all these other groups and authors and people out there who help teach us to go back into the light. All right, everybody. Well, I had to get through that. There was no way I can continue without tackling this subject. So my presentation I'm going to post in my next video, which is called Life, the Afterlife, Expectations versus Realities, how it actually is, what we can actually expect as long as we do not go into the light, as long as we avoid the soul trap, as long as we follow our instincts and we don't go down the path of people who desperately want everyone to be collectivized into these other dimensional realities, spirit plane realities, where those teachings are continuously reinforced back down on the earth as souls go into those realities with absolutely nothing to do but have their energy drained out of them by a higher force in those realities, usually masquerading as the light, until you end up just forced into reincarnation, known as the reincarnation trap, which again, it's real. I'm sorry, everybody. I began as an afterlife researcher, just not believing any of that stuff. And what happens? Become a telepath, become a channel, find out that it's real. And that it has grips on so many people that people will turn Night of the Living Dead zombies to destroy you if you question anything about it, which is why I'm here in the lion's den. Thank you for watching. I hope this message resonates to the people whom it is supposed to resonate with, and it makes enemies with the people with whom it is supposed to make enemies with, because that's the ancient concept of putting people from one team into the other team, so everyone knows that this other team does not believe that morality is real, and this team is fighting for truth in the spirit of actual divinity and God. And that's kind of where I'm at. So thank you for watching this. Hope this made sense to you. Subscribing always helps. Don't forget to check out my Reddit page, and stay tuned for my next video where we'll go over a presentation about what's really going on in the higher divine cosmos and the higher densities of existence, where we don't have to be stuck in hollow heaven bardo states where we continuously are on a loop trying to convince the people back on Earth the three tenets of the New Age movement and the false light teachings. I'll talk to you next time.